Cathaoirleach, I'm very glad to have the opportunity to reply to this debate introduced by my colleague Deputy Brendan Howlin on behalf of the Labour Party. The motion is probably the most comprehensive motion on reform of our institutions, reform of the way we do our business in this House, reform of the Dáil that has ever been put before this House. And that's why it's so dispiriting to hear the Minister sum up for the government, because it really seems that the Minister and the Fianna Fáil speakers almost invariably were of the opinion that this is another routine motion about reform of the Dáil. It's not about that at all. This is a fundamentally transformative resolution that seeks to start by acknowledging that politics is in crisis in this country. Now, it doesn't matter whether the government is of the opinion, as it is, that we are being unfairly treated, that we are being, a lot of the criticisms are ill-founded, that some of them are destructive. Closing your eyes to the reality will not make that go away. So this is not just a motion about Dáil reform. This is seeking to chart a roadmap for reform that will restore confidence in politics and that will restore confidence in this House, that will restore confidence in our own capacity as a country to lead the way to economic recovery. Now, I think it was, I know it was Deputy Sean Power in the debate who said, and I scribbled it somewhere, he said that we have a duty to lift the spirit of the nation. I can't lay my hand on it. That we have a duty to lift the spirit of the country and that we have a duty to give honest leadership. And I agree with that. And I agree with the way he approached the motion. Because that is what motivated the motion that is on the floor of the House today. Because the problem is, Cathaoirleach, that hot on the heels of the collapse of our economy is the near collapse of confidence in politics and confidence in this House. I don't know how it is, but somehow the comprehensive failure of Fianna Fáil is coming to be represented as failure of the political system. The underlying assumption somehow that is allowed to take hold is that because Fianna Fáil has failed so comprehensively, it automatically follows that no other party in this House and no other combination of parties in this House is capable of prudently managing our affairs. And it seems to me that it's almost as if the dyed-in-the-wool Fianna Fáil loyalists and their fellow travellers have concluded that it is somehow the best way to salvage something of the reputation of the once great party by spreading the word that because we failed to do it, we're telling you that the others would do no better. You know, it's a new version of the old story, when Fianna Fáil are in trouble, sure you're all the same. There is absolutely no evidence that our political system, for all its faults, and it has serious faults, is incapable of throwing up a competent government that can restore confidence and lead us to economic recovery. We've now reached such a crisis, Cathaoirleach, that nobody in this country, whatever your political loyalties, nobody has a vested interest in creating a new conventional wisdom that our political system is incapable of producing a competent government. News travels fast nowadays. Our country's reputation has taken a severe pounding in recent times. And promulgating the notion that we can't govern ourselves is another nail in the reputation of our country, and it's not true. The Labour Party motion, introduced by Deputy Howlin, is about restoring confidence in politics. Our key institutions must be made fit for purpose. This House must demonstrate that there is a better way to do our business. Parliament must show that it has an independent existence and a purpose and role separate from government. Traditional public service work practices must be overhauled. The relationship of the government minister to the Secretary-General of the department must be brought into the 21st century. We need to redefine the relationship between ministers and their departments, between the minister and his Secretary-General. 19th century notions of personal ministerial responsibility coupled with legal ministerial responsibility for all official departmental acts and the legal competence of civil servants to perform such acts without any necessary recourse to the minister all lead to a situation where accountability to the Oireachtas is demanded on an entirely fictitious basis. It's absurd, Cathaoirleach, for this side of the House to persist in the claim that the Minister is personally responsible for every action that is taken in his department. And it's a dereliction of accountability on the part of this House to excuse a Minister because he didn't know something in his department when he should have known. And neither is failing to intervene acceptable when the Minister should have done so, or failing to ensure that the Minister keeps himself informed of potential as well as actual problems. Our system, Cathaoirleach, suits weak ministers, and our system suits traditional civil servants. When cock-ups occur, circle the wagons and engage in collective self-defence. The Minister's impenetrable corporate shroud protects civil servants and minister alike from individual examination and from accountability. The system breeds the kind of minister who sees himself as a kind of ambassador at large, someone who photographs well but doesn't read his brief. There is a world of difference between being an ambassador plenipotentiary and being a minister who wields executive power. Accountability must be at the heart of the reforms we seek to make. The Dáil is not working as well as it might. The government is elected and is running the country in an unaccountable way and is riding roughshod over this House. The filleting of the Freedom of Information Act, the constraining of the Equality Authority, the abolition of the Combat Poverty Agency, the shooting down of Labour's Private Members' Bill for whistleblower protection, the rejection of regulation of lobbyists, all point in one direction: a government that is opposed to its actions being subjected to scrutiny. The result of unaccountable government is unimaginable failure. Consensus was a word unheard of when Fianna Fáil was riding high on the hog. This House should be alert that consensus does not mean cover-up and collusion. Therefore, Cathaoirleach, this Labour Party motion is a comprehensive roadmap to reforming our institutions, to the establishment of real accountability and the restoration of confidence in the capacity of politics to provide solutions and lead the recovery. One of the principal reasons for the collapse of confidence inside and outside this jurisdiction is that we have a dysfunctional government on a life support machine. It's a government guilty of dereliction of duty on a scale never before experienced in this state. So long as the same people remain in office, we will not be able to win back our reputation. When the people eventually get the opportunity to speak, the alternative government must have ready for implementation a programme of reform that puts beyond doubt our determination to change the way we govern. The Fianna Fáil response The Fianna Fáil response is to circle the wagons and close their ears to the daily denigration of politics. Just because some of the commentary is ill-founded or even destructive, the wrong response is to ignore it. The way we do our politics must change. We have many great natural advantages in this country. The talent of our people is capable of digging us out of the hole. We have shown that we can earn our way in the world. Our people are demanding leadership and deserve no less. I found it profoundly disturbing this evening, Cathaoirleach, when I heard it on the 6 o'clock news that the Court of Auditors in Brussels has found that we need not have closed Mallow Sugar Factory. I had the opportunity, along with Deputy Sherlock, or Councillor Sherlock as he then was, to visit Mallow Sugar Factory and have a presentation made following the closure of Carlow and following the transfer of the machinery from Carlow to Mallow. The people who made the presentation felt that they could grow the jobs at Mallow. There was no difficulty about the transporting of beet and so on. And they were adamant that we ought to be allowed to retain a sugar industry in this country. It's a classic example of a government not listening, not prepared to hear what this side of the House has said, to sit there while the jobs were piling up in the construction sector and while our manufacturing base was being eroded. It was a chronic act of failure that we should have let those jobs go unnecessarily and that nobody fought the case of the people who worked in the plant and the growers who supplied it. And it's only one of many decisions. You know, the biggest decision has been dealt with by some of my colleagues, which relates to the banks. This government, or in its previous guises, killed off the notion of inquiry by parliamentary committee. Within days, we had a congressional inquiry into why the banks failed. This government contrived, after Abby Lara, to kill off inquiry by committee, despite the performance of the Dirt inquiry that retrieved €1 billion for this exchequer, and that in fact made recommendations that has produced the kind of modern and efficient Department of Revenue that we have today. But neither the senior public servants nor the government were allowed to wanted to see inquiry by parliamentary committee continue. So you obstructed a bank inquiry that happened in Congress, that happened in the United Kingdom. You obstructed it. You put one into, you created one that is in secret behind closed doors. And I remember Minister Eamon Ryan above all else. Maybe it's his messianic zeal to become more Fianna Fáil than Fianna Fáil, telling me in this House that this was going to be an open inquiry. Now, if anybody in this House has come across this open inquiry, you should tell us, because there are many big questions that remain unanswered. Huge questions like, who, in any event, advised on a blanket guarantee? The direct result of where we are tonight as the bond spreads climb to 9%. Who advised? Merrill Lynch didn't advise. The Department of Finance say they didn't advise. So who advised? It's one of the great questions of our time, like what's the meaning of life and is there a God and why didn't Micheál Wall eat the dinner?
Deputy, you have 1 minute.
Well, can Cathaoirleach, could I just make reference to, there are a lot of things that need to be said about this, but can I just make reference to the comments of Deputy Thomas Byrne about the Garda Síochána and the extending of the Freedom of Information Act to the Garda Síochána. And he said it was typical of the left, and how dare anybody want to extend the Freedom of Information Act. Now, clearly he didn't hear the speech last night by his minister. His minister last night, I know we've been campaigning for it here for a number of years, but his minister last night said that the government does intend to extend the Freedom of Information Act to the administrative functions of the Gardaí, and I welcome that. But Thomas Byrne doesn't think it's a good idea. He doesn't think it's a good idea, despite the reasons that have been adduced in this House very frequently, why it could be very good for the Garda Síochána, not just for society. So either Thomas Byrne thinks that a few votes might matter, and I doubt if he's right about that, in Meath East in the next election, or he's trying to blacken the name of this party in terms of our wish to implement the same reforms throughout the public service, including in the Garda Síochána. And I thought they were remarks that were unworthy of him. I don't know how many members of this House know that there is a post in existence called the confidential receiver. The confidential receiver, in case you needed a copy like yourself, the confidential receiver is to hear complaints from the members of the Garda Síochána about matters that cause them to be disturbed about the discharge of the functions of the Garda Síochána. I tried to establish what this chap does and where he is, and after a long search I was told that it's confidential. I telephoned the Department of Justice, and the person I got that day said, and I'm finishing, sir, that, oh yes, he has an office here, we believe. I rang back a few days to talk to him a few days later, and they said, no, never heard of him. I cornered the minister, who's usually full of information and very anxious to share it with the opposition, and he confirmed that he is indeed over in the Department of Justice, and you expect the ordinary Garda from around the country to present in the Department of Justice with his complaint, whatever it is, about what's going on in the Garda Síochána. And I think that sums up this government's attitude to secrecy and the way decisions should be made in government. And that's a big part of the reason why we are where we are tonight.
Thank you very much, Deputy Gorman.